Hi, everyone. It's Jim Flint and Deonna Bailey again here with our podcast called All Time High. We've got a lot on the table that's happening in 2023 to close out, looking back and looking into 2024. Arguably one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest topics, something that we closed our last episode with, actually, which was our first episode. So our last episode was our first episode. How often can you say that, Deonna?
Not very often.
I think this will be the only time.
Yeah.
But we were about to jump into the dialogue and dynamics of FTX.
Oh yeah. It's
And
great.
you,
My favorite.
and I'm going to insert a clip here that goes back into last year, November in Austin, when we were on another podcast where we were talking about this particular topic. And so at the time, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Now things have moved forward, right? Sam's been convicted,
Yep. We
but
know a lot more of what happened.
not sentenced. There's a book that's come out by Michael Lewis, all-time famous author. There's a whole new implication to the tokens that have been impacted by this particular transaction. And let's start here. It seems like they want this thing to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. In the article we were referencing in the last episode, they're talking about FTX possibly standing back up in 2024. And it blows my mind. Okay. I don't necessarily understand how bankruptcy works in all of the other countries. And if they stand back up, it's not going to be for US, right? But it was never really for US
It
anyway,
wasn't to begin with,
right?
yeah.
Right. And so they're going to stand it back up. But for what? I mean, the technology was corrupt, right? The systems were not good. There was no checks and balances in place to prevent what happened, and their coin doesn't do anything. So what's the purpose of standing it back up? Unless the idea is just to make a bunch of money again so that debts can get settled and people can get payout as part of the bankruptcy. But I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah, it is one of the, I mean, it is an albatross around the entire industry. And you and I are here wanting to bring people together and build the market cap for this industry to its all-time high, if not well beyond. I mean, we both recognize that a $3 trillion asset class for cryptocurrency has been created. Now, right now, we're somewhere about half that, but you and I can see a day where it's 10 trillion. I mean, if we talk about the tokenization of assets, I mean, oh, we haven't even gotten started
You
on the
know.
utility side of this. But what they were doing was, and have you, I watched some of the the case. I've read some of the book. I've listened to Michael Lewis. It was out and outright fraud.
Yeah, it was outright fraud. Like we said it in the interview at the Texas Blockchain Council, this could have happened in any industry and it was just egregious, right? Like there was nothing that they did correctly within any law, let alone crypto, right? So it was bound to happen. When you just have these fraudulent practices, these are the things that go. And it's greed. At the end of the day, it's greed and ignorance, right? The two things, bad combination, especially when you're one of the youngest billionaires that gets there the fastest, right? And everybody's got you on this pedestal. You go up high and you fall down fast.
So here's my question for you, because you've been in the space longer than most, longer than many, and FTX seemingly came into being overnight. Was it
Yeah.
something that popped up more quickly than you thought it might otherwise?
Yeah. There's the crypto space was very small. And when it started out, there's a group of OGs that I know, but I'm not in that. They are way better, like have been in it way longer than I have. They all got together and talked about how do we further the industry? How do we work together? And we're talking exchanges, wallets, projects, so like CEO of Celsius, CEO of BlockFi, like all of these people, we were all together saying, how do we want the industry to shape? How can we work together to move this forward? And then it just seemed out of nowhere, FTX stood up, and nobody knew. We were like, who, who is this guy? Like who? And I remember watching a congressional hearing, and I want to say his name. It wasn't the CEO of uh man, I'm not going to think of the name of it right now. It's one of the biggest exchanges in the U.S. And to start with a C, coin.
Coinbase, Brian Armstrong,
Yeah, coin. There you go.
out of
Coin.
Houston,
Yeah, it
Texas.
wasn't
Yeah,
Brian.
went
It
to Rice
wasn't Brian.
University. Yeah.
It was it was somebody from Coinbase, right? And they were sitting at the congressional hearing and they were so articulate and well mannered. And then next to him was SBF, who looked like a hot freaking mess with his hair everywhere, and he's in like his t-shirt, and I'm like, who is this guy? I know everybody else at this table. Who's this guy? I have no idea who this guy is. And by the way, you look like a wreck. Like, I don't even know what you're doing standing in Congress like that. But he came out of nowhere. He popped up real fast. And this is, I don't like to think conspiracy theories.
Yeah, popped up or propped up. There's you
Yeah,
go.
right.
Yeah.
There's a compelling argument to say that maybe there was a lot of things going on in the background, and he was kind of the fall guy. I don't know. The whole thing is just compelling. But the fact that they want to stand it back up in 2024, I think is just asinine to me.
Yeah, and well, real quick, you mentioned OG Space. You are in Florida for the holidays, and you mentioned you're at an OG's house. I don't know if the OG's there with you. Do you care to disclose that, or do we need to keep it
No, I can.
cryptographically secure?
Steve Beauregard and Lee Fox, two OGs. Steve Beauregard stood up GoCoin in 2013. It was the second payment processor to stand up next to BitPay. GoCoin was the first one to accept altcoins, though. It was a fantastic company. It ended up closing its doors during COVID. Still profitable. They didn't go under. They just said, hey, with regulations coming out, we don't know if we necessarily want to keep doing this. So let's just close the doors, pay out all our investors, and everybody walked away with happy money, which was nice. Most companies can't say that. Steve has opened so many doors in the crypto space. He knows everybody. They're very well established, as well as Lee Fox. The two of them together are just the power couple dynamic duo, and it's always great to be in their presence.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to a different kind of power couple. We had Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend, Caroline.
So we're calling it a power couple.
Well, I mean, they were literally moving billions of dollars back and forth between the balance sheets of the two companies. And that's basically where the fraud fell out. And I think a lot of people stopped there. Yeah. But I want to give credit to your knowledge of the space. And we're going to take a look at what's happened to their token. That basically, if you recall, when the rumors were getting out and the internet finds the truth really, really fast, sometimes it doesn't, but when it's really real, oh my gosh. And so you had CZ, who wanted to take a look at the books, and these two guys were very competitive. My take on it. You can qualify it differently, certainly, but two competitors, all of a sudden, one of them is going to take a look at the books of another who's in trouble. He says publicly, "Oh, everything's going to be okay," but word on the street is they're not liquid. Right. And as soon as CZ takes a look at it, lo and behold, CZ says, "Within 24 hours, I'm out." Yep, and then things start to happen. Can you talk about how CZ and Binance pretty much forced the issue on top of FTX?
Yeah, there's, I watched a lot of documentaries. I tried to pay attention. Even when it was all going down, I was glued to Twitter. I was like, I was actually with Steve Beauregard, and we were sitting here, and I'm like, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? And like, oh, this came out now, and this came out now. It was like, I don't know, my favorite soap opera to watch at that point.
It still is in some ways, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's CZ and SBF. They were competitors, but don't forget, CZ owned a good chunk of FTT tokens, right? So like that was actually part of the catalyst that started all of it. Was he said there was a paper that got leaked from CoinDesk to show that the balance sheet at FTX was so heavy FTT, and CZ got wind of that and said, "I'm going to liquidate my FTT," and then Almeida, what's her name? The SBF's girlfriend.
Caroline.
So when Caroline jumps in, she lists, "I'll buy them from you at this price." And that was a red flag, because when we knew that it couldn't drop below that price, then you knew that there was something, you know what I mean? Like what they were saying wasn't really true. That's not a free market. And so they were trying to keep it without it dropping at all. SBF knew they were going to be in trouble. He reached out to CZ. He was trying to raise this entire time, by the way, like trying to raise the money from every.
Cover the liquidity crisis they were in. And it was Caroline Ellison. I just looked and.
Yeah, perfect. Caroline Ellison. Yeah. So, once CZ got his hands on the books, he's like, this company is it's just beyond repair. And that goes back to the things we had talked about before. When you're operating a company solely on crypto, it's very difficult to maintain that balance sheet, because it's just so up and down all the time. I have $1 million, I have $500,000, I have 250, I have 2 million. Like, it's just all over the place.
Well, I want to share this all-time listing of the FTX token, and I think it's kind of interesting what happened. from a financial perspective, because you mentioned that the valuation of this was at $80
Yeah. It's
in
huge.
September of 21.
Right.
And as it so happened, let's fast forward. I'm sure this is November. Yeah, the November 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. It was still at $5, but then the bottom fell out
Yep.
and it went all the way down to 2, where it's hovered for quite a long, less than $1 in many instances subsequently. But what was it that CZ did right here, knowing that he held a lot of this asset on his own, to drive the price from, let's call it, I mean, and that's material, from $26 all the way down to 3 in the matter of 72 hours. The
Yeah.
bottom fell out.
Yep, sure did. I mean, and all he had to say was he was going to sell, because once CZ's publicly saying he's going to sell his 2 million or however many FTT tokens he had, everybody panicked. Everybody panicked.
That was the game over. That was it.
Yeah, that was game over. Yeah, because you're not coming out and saying that. I mean, the timing of all of it, right? The CoinDesk article, CZ saying it, like it just created this panic, and people were like, "Sell it, get rid of this. Something's wrong. Something's hokey. Get it off my balance sheet. I don't want it. I want my money before it's gone." And look, a lot of people who didn't take advantage got stuck, and they're still, they haven't recovered their money yet. And hopefully they do during the bankruptcy, but you never know if that's going to happen or not.
Oh, you don't. And it'll take time to play out, and you might get 70 cents on the dollar, maybe
Yeah.
30 cents. You never know. You just don't.
Do you know what a market maker is?
No, tell more.
Can you pull that graph back up for me real quick,
Okay.
if you don't mind? So,
I
a
don't mind at
market
all.
maker in crypto is essentially, so like Alameda Research. Alameda Research is what you would consider a market maker, because they facilitate trades back and forth. And so you see this, it's actually a fake inflation of the price of FTT, because it wasn't being used in the way that they're saying. Like if CZ had a good chunk and FTX had a good chunk and Alameda had a good chunk, where's the money going back and forth? Right? If you have 75% of the asset in those 3 people or those 3 establishments, that means that's only 25% left over for it to be exchanged. And the exchange back and forth is what creates the price and the demand. So Alameda Research was actually a market maker. And so because they could exchange back and forth, right? And so it's a complete conflict of interest to have an exchange where you're going back and forth with price and dollars, and also owning a market maker for this exact reason. But yet there's not clear regulations that say whether you can or whether you can't, and that inability to define it in an impactful way just created this chaos.
Now, are you able to see on the screen right now the org chart?
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
So when you say market maker, this is how they were making the market. And boy, oh boy, this is reminiscent of Enron to me, if there ever was. I mean, this is not something that falls on innocent minds. I mean, this is quite complex.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it was like they played by their own rules. They presented themselves in one ways, and then behind the doors they were doing something completely different than what they were saying.
And as you look at that, they were basically moving money back and forth between the different entities.
Yeah.
With the mindset of maintaining the profit. Or at some point they made a decision, and tell me how this mind might work. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to imagine it too. But they basically at some point said, oh, well, we're going to make more money. And so it's okay to take assets that are customer assets and move them over to a place that doesn't represent what it is that we've represented that they own. I mean, where does that come in at some point? And I'm not speaking for you, but you can speak for them.
I couldn't even tell you. I think common business 101, you're not supposed to touch customer funds, right? There's supposed to be a clear separation between customer money, company money, period.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so let's go back to GoCoin for a second, right? Because GoCoin, it was a unique company in the sense that you could spend Bitcoin at a store, and we would convert the Bitcoin to cash, and then we would pay out the merchant in cash, so that they could take advantage of the crypto community and the crypto asset. And they don't have the liability that we talked about having crypto on your balance sheet. And we would see, government people use it. We saw a lot of nonprofits use it. Our biggest customers were very high value. We had a custom jewelry maker who would use us all the time during Oscar season. So there was some use case for it, but it was never a 1-for-1. We would take the crypto go here, but we had a cash reserve and we would pay out here. So they weren't having to liquidate every time they got a coin. They could sit on the coin, they could hold it for a minute. And as the market went up, they would pull profits. They'd have that cash reserve. And that's why they were able to close their door as a profitable business, because they maintained such a stringent delineation between those two funds.
You would think that assets would be matched 1-to-1, but in this world of fractional reserve banking, the more and more that I uncover with regard to it, the true financiers are looking at how they can leverage money. And so that was part of the FTX story, was that Sam had somehow figured out ways to leverage assets in this space and take them to all new heights. I think personally, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
But he thought it would all work out,
Yeah.
that some of the success they found during the bull run of 21 was going to play itself out in 2022. And lo and behold, it did not. But let's keep this. I'm going to take us all the way back to 24. And this is a different screenshot. You know, we showed the precipitous fall, but now as we look more recently, and I think you can see my screen, the asset, the FTX token, had been running around $1 for the longest during the trial. And then all of a sudden, let's see, almost a year to the day. And I'm not sure what that means or how that relates.
No.
This thing starts to pop back up into the $3.50 range. And as you can see right now, it's at $3.40 this very moment, if you round up. So what is going on with this token and the possibility that it's going to be stood back up?
I mean, it's moving, right? That's what brings the value, is it's moving somewhere. So either there could be a market maker that is causing it to go back and forth.
It got as high as $6. Look at that on December of 11th.
I know, it's almost doubled, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? Like within a month? Not even a month. It's tripled. Well, it's 6 times.
November 8th, it was 130, and now it hit 6. You know how sometimes crypto will spike like that, but let's just say that the solid top was a 550.
Yep.
Wow. And now it's settled back down, but still, that being at 340 off that $1 range for almost a year is just wild. And it's all about the speculation that FTX is coming back. I mean, is there a way in this world that we live in that SBF comes back as part of FTX, or is FTX going to come back?
My God.
Isn't that just like horrible branding?
Would you do business with FTX? Would you?
No.
And
and to the degree that, you know, we want people to grow, that help us grow the space. How do you become more aware of FTX? How do you protect yourself from a debacle like that?
You know, it's a really tough one. I mean, you know, going with reputable exchanges, you know, CZ's been around for a long time. Coinbase has been around for a long time. Those ones, I feel like you would be safer with, but again, not your keys, not your crypto, right? Not your money.
Right.
So if you're buying your crypto and holding it on that exchange, it's not really your money until it's out and in your wallet that is not connected to the internet. Doing your research, understanding who you're doing business with, understanding where they come from. I think the FTX, you know, a lot of really big names were in FTX. It goes back to Bernie Madoff too, though, right? All the rich people were giving their money to Bernie Madoff because Madoff was the guy who could make the money. And at the end of the day, the people who were greedy, and I don't mean everybody was greedy, but let's say it, like the greedy ones who take advantage, cripple the market. It's what happened with the housing crash, right? Wall Street got crazy and greedy, and then they caused the housing crash, which, by the way, I don't know if you know, they're doing those things again. Like they're bundling those mortgages and selling them is happening again under a different name. And so, you know, we're it's just a matter of time until the house of cards falls again, and the people are the ones left holding the bag, right? Which is why crypto was meant to combat that. And it's sad to see that somebody just used it in such a malicious way, unfortunately, right? Because FTX was just that example.
Yeah, I think too, like some of what you could consider is having your assets in different locations so that if FTX was one of the ones that takes a hit, and who could have seen that coming in a lot of ways, because it was also represented by Steph Curry and Tom Brady and things that I, as a sports guy, am attracted to, is like, okay, if these guys are doing it, it's okay and it's cool, and they're advertising on the Super Bowl, and he seems like he's a pretty smart dude that knows what he's doing. Yeah. I think there's also a place for, and we are at this tipping point that some of the money is going to go institutional, because not everybody of the 337 million people in the US is going to want to actually put their money into a ledger, and that's a whole nother discussion that's supposed to be safe, that may or may not be safe. It's supposed to be private, but may not be private. But they may want to trust, strangely, right? We don't trust the banks during times of crisis, but during times of growth, it may be a more appropriate way. And I hate to say that for the true libertarians out there, but not everybody has the capability to put cryptographic elements into a private ledger that is then stored with a seed phrase. I mean, think about how long, I mean, how much time should people give themselves to get up to speed with what's going on in this space? Is there a primer?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody. For me, the rabbit hole was quick. I met these guys. They were started telling me about the technology, and I'm a numbers girl, right? I love numbers. I love math. And so when I started doing my research on Bitcoin, I was instantly awed. I mean, I actually left a career in sports to go into crypto because I just saw the potential for where the industry could go. And I felt like I was early. I felt like I had gotten into where I could really take advantage of the market. And it's been, you know, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Like, I don't think I'll ever know all of it. Every day I'm learning something new because it's constantly evolving. Once you find whatever that thing is that you're happy about is when you'll be happy and attracted to crypto, right? And for me, it was, right, I'm retired Army. I did 18 years in the Army. I watched a lot of things happen when we were deployed. When we were in Iraq in 2010, we were trying to solve problems that we had already solved in 2004. And it's like, hey, 6 years ago, I already solved this problem. I don't understand why you're having the problem.
We're doing this again.
We're doing it. Yeah. People coming in, the paperwork trail, it goes like, so if I'm there in 08, I have no idea what they did in 04. I have none of that paper trail. And if I had it on blockchain, if I had medical records on blockchain, if I had these things in a stored location with cryptographic, you know, protection, those things are there. They help make life easier. And so that was my attraction. Bitcoin, my attraction to Bitcoin was the government, was hoping it would fix the government. And the fact that it was just a financial outlet as well was a bonus to me.
So I've seen 3 instances where, and this is my personal story, the internet grew quite dramatically. Initially, it had a lot of the characteristics where people were afraid, there was fear, uncertainty, doubt. Only scammers worked and did things on the internet. Everybody knows now you do pretty much everything on the internet, if not your phone. Then the second phase of this was because of the capability, Facebook and Google, Amazon, Netflix, they became part and parcel to communication in society and how you think about and how you go about living your life. And so as I look at what is otherwise called Web3, I see that now, because the technology exists, there's going to be an additional phase where, because you can transact instantaneously, and by instantaneously, I mean less than 3 days, less than 72 hours, because Bitcoin solves the issue of having double entries, because there are other use cases that are being developed. To me, this is inevitable. So that's when I got in and said, okay, I've been early a couple of times, but once it finally arrived, I was right on time. So this is one of those where it's like, okay, there's no way that this doesn't happen. And so the way I got started quickly, 2% of my net worth. It was something that got me in the game, but didn't put me at risk for the things that I've been saving for the things that I've been building for. And you realize real quickly that there are going to be good days and bad days. But in terms of the greater good, I'm going to go back to this episode's topic and have you close us out right here, right now. So looking into your crystal ball, this is not financial advice, but 2024, FTX, SBF is going to get a theory sentence. He could get commuted, or what do they call it when the president he pardons you?
No.
That could happen.
Well, you'd have to have Biden able to articulate a pardon. Sorry, too soon.
Too soon. I'm trying to keep it attractive to both sides of that.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
That episode was red. This episode's blue.
That has nothing to do with colors. That has to do with the faculty.
The mental, yeah. And I think we all recognize, not just I'm on both sides of the aisle, literally right down the middle. Yes, there's some cognitive challenges there, and that's a whole nother episode, which we can.
But he could pardon SBF. So how does it play out? Is that the
yeah.
Ooh, it's interesting. I don't think he gets the leniency. I think that it would. Okay, so let's say, for example, do you know who Russ Ulbricht is?
I do not.
No. So Russ Ulbricht, he was actually the owner of Silk Road, which was the first use case for Bitcoin.
I
Even
know
though the
Silk
first
Road.
transaction,
Yeah.
yeah, so the first transaction was a pizza, right? Silk
Yep.
Road was this dark web, no holds barred. You can get anything you want, drugs, hookers, hitman, anything, just paying in Bitcoin. And people did it. And so because you
You know
had
that
a,
also holds true of cash, by the way, just so we're
I know,
not
no, I know.
conflating the issue. But go ahead.
But it's not, but in cat you have the limitation of being in person for cash,
Fair enough.
right?
Fair enough.
Bitcoin, you could do it digitally. And
Okay.
so he got caught. He got tried in New York. Do you know what he got for his
Oh, he
now? He
got sentenced like outrageously, didn't he? Yes.
outrageously. Yeah, do you know what it is?
Like 60 years, no, not even life, in his first offense, if I'm not mistaken. Something
Three
to that.
life terms. Three
That's what,
life
okay.
terms, right?
Wow.
And he didn't kill anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. He ran a website. That was all he did, right? And the things that were facilitated on there, I mean, like, so if you, how do you say in one sense that he's going to get a severe punishment, but then SBF is going to get off? Now, considering how things go, is it possible? Sure. But I think that that was such a bad precedence in the industry and make the US look bad. I just don't think they could afford to do it. So I think
All right.
SBF, he
So
goes
no
away for
SBF in
no.
2024. He's not coming back. He's going to serve some time,
No,
minimal time.
even if it gets out, I bet somebody would assassinate him.
Fair
Like,
enough.
that
Yeah,
bad.
we've
Like
seen
it's
that.
no good future for this kid.
Yeah. But FTX, the company, are they going to stand that back up? Like bankruptcy proceedings are complete. They've made investors whole. Like we're starting to see, oh, we found $6 billion. Because originally it was that $8 billion were lost. Oh, there's 6 billion back or 4 billion. And nobody really knows what they don't know.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, this thing looks like it's getting propped up. Do you think it's coming back in 2024 where investors again can put money back into that company name?
I think they try, and I have no idea who in their right mind would do it. Like I wouldn't go to FTX. Actually, I looked at FTX and got a weird feeling and never joined it. But I did entertain it at one point. Knowing what everybody knows now, I don't know who would go back in business with those guys.
All right,
But
here's my bold proclamation. I think there's going to be a company like a institution, a Fidelity, right? A Charles Schwab. Somebody's going to buy the asset, and you could see FTX start to represent Fidelity transaction
yeah,
exchange or something like that. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but boy, if this is right, save this tape because that's not without the realm of possibility.
yeah,
And I do see custodians becoming some of the more historical trusted entities to replace some of the more rambunctious, out of control, the rules don't apply entities. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, FTX may have been well intended, but boy, those were some bad choices.
yeah. They were very bad choices, and you could say well intended, but I don't know how you look at the actions and think any of that was well intended. But
Well, if you
well, you
remember,
said
I think,
Michael Lewis does, right? Michael Lewis too, and that's a whole nother. We didn't even get into that this time, but apparently some people do believe in SBF.
well, he was such a good advocate for, he was taking all the money and it was like the excuse that he was making for what he was doing and he was going to give it back for the greater good.
Yeah.
He
What
had
did he?
had a name for it.
Where did that? Venture altruism.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so, boy, when you start to believe that your process, like it was Machiavellian in that sense, like the ends justified the means. If I'm going to give this all back to society to make the world a better place, well, it's okay to take customer assets, lever them, and see if I can't grow them because I'm
Yeah.
just going to give it back to him anyway. And I'm not saying that's what he thought, but it's not unlikely that he did not think that. Look, I'm looking forward to hearing what people who are watching this episode think about it. They can leave their comments below. We want them to subscribe. We want them to like it.
And actually,
And
if anybody knows any good that SBF did with the money, that'd be great to know too, because I haven't figured out where he helped at all.
a lot of political donations,
A lot of political,
a
a lot of
lot of
sport.
campaign financing,
Yeah, a lot of property.
a lot of property. And oh boy, his parents too. I don't even want to get into that. Like
You could do
they,
a whole podcast on this.
yeah, this might even be the whole thing. Like who, but it's all time high. We're looking to see the space grow, and some of it is going to be learning from the mistakes that others have made. And so that's the context from which to approach this. Dionna, I can't wait till our next episode. I'm going to sign us off for now and wish you and yours the very best.
Yeah. Happy New Year.